What's up, guys? So we just got back from the range. We had 3 of our toys out there playing around a little bit today. Started breaking in the G-Force GF12AR. Stay tuned for more content on that. But today's video, we're going to be focusing on the Canik Mete MC9. We also had our 45 out shooting a little bit today as well. But again, we're going to be focusing on the Canik 9mm today. I'm going to show you how to get that broken down, cleaned up, and properly lubricated so it's ready to go for next time you head to the range. First and foremost, as always, make sure you have an unloaded firearm. You can see we don't even have a magazine in it, and there is nothing in the chamber. Okay, I've already checked, obviously, but just double check just to be sure. Once you do that, point it in a safe direction, pull the trigger. We are now ready to break this down. We have our 4 magazines over here that we were using today. We're just going to give them a quick wipe down. These Mete MC9s, super easy to break down. You have 2 tabs. You're going to see one right there, and then one on the other side. All we're going to do is very lightly pull the slide backwards, just, I don't even know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Pull those 2 tabs down, and then slide the slide forward a little bit, and the slide pops off just like that. Next, we're going to take the recoil spring out. All you do is push it forward, pop it up, and it pops out just that easy. Next is the barrel. We're just going to lift up, pull it backwards, and the barrel's out. Now we have the 4 main pieces that we're going to be working with today to clean it. I'm not going to go through everything up front on what I'll be using. I'll just kind of mention it as we go throughout the video just to save a little time. So pick a piece and start your cleaning. I always like to start with the barrel. We're going to be using the M Pro 7 just so you know what cleaner we're using. So we'll take the barrel, and I'm just going to go ahead and spray the outside, and I'm also going to spray 1 or 2 sprays directly into the barrel. We'll set that down and let that just kind of sit there for a second. We're going to take our recoil spring, again, spray it on there. I'm going to take a microfiber towel and just kind of dry off the recoil spring. That's really all there is to cleaning the spring here. Set that aside. And one thing I will mention, I highly recommend some kind of cleaning mat like this. This one, and I'll link everything we're using down below. Everything you're going to see in this video, I'll link for you. This one has these magnetized spots over here, so the recoil spring, when I'm done with it, just set it on one of them spots. I don't have to worry about it rolling off the table or anything. Pretty cool, and they're not that expensive, honestly. So let's move on to, actually, let's get the barrel done before we move on to the slide and the frame. So the barrel, once we sprayed it like we did, I'm just going to wipe off the outside. If you have a bore snake, now is the perfect time to use it. Bore snakes, honestly, are they needed? No. If you have one though, they are a pretty cool, you know, tool to clean with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it unstuck from my shirt first, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and spray the bore snake. Doesn't have to be soaked, just spray it, you know, a couple times there. And then you always want to go from the breech end. So we're just going to take that piece, feed it down through, again going through the breech end. Just kind of think of it, you want to go the way the bullet travels. Okay, so you want to go from the back end and then come out of the muzzle. All right, so now we're literally just going to pull it through the barrel. Okay, you can do that once or twice, and then we're also going to use a couple other things to clean it, but this is just a quick, easy way to get that first layer of fouling off the inside of the barrel. And honestly, the bore snake alone cleans this thing pretty good. If you held it up to the light, you'd be able to see, you know, it already looks pretty good. Now that the inside of the barrel is at least started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this microfiber, and I'm also going to spray this with my M Pro 7. Again, doesn't have to be soaked, but now we're just going to kind of, again, wipe down the outside. And you're going to want to pay special attention to your feed ramp, which, if you're not familiar, that's right there. That's where the bullet feeds up into the barrel. So just pay close attention there, because you're going to get a decent amount of foul up. But should come right off, especially if you clean your, you know, your weapon right after you're done shooting. This stuff is pretty loose, and that cleaner does a really good job of breaking it down and cleaning it up. Once you have that all cleaned up, we'll set our towel down here. And this is one thing I'll mention, this little kit. Got it off Amazon. Again, I will link it down below. This little kit is awesome. I can't even remember how much I paid for it. It was not expensive at all, but it comes with just about everything you need. Jags, brushes, brass brushes. It's just an awesome little tool kit to grab. Super tiny and compact. I keep it in my range bag, so it's always ready to go, but it has just about everything you'll need to get your gun clean. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the handle and we're gonna grab one of the arms. We'll start with the brass brush. Comes with different calibers. This is obviously the 9mm caliber brush. Spray that once or twice with the cleaner. And now we're gonna go, again, going from the breech end and just kind of run it through. And when you do this, make sure you go all the way through and then come all the way back, okay? Don't stop in the middle. It just gets stuck and hung up. So you can kind of twist it like this as you're going through if you wanted to. But if you try to like pull back towards you when it's kind of halfway, it's just gonna get stuck. It's just not a good practice to get into, to be honest. So kind of twist it or whatever until it pops out, pull it back. And again, you're just kind of loosening any of that extra fouling or carbon that's built up in there. Okay, once we do that, we'll set the brass aside. Now we're gonna switch over to one of our jag pieces here. Again, comes in that kit. Just gonna screw it on the handle. And now we'll switch over to patches. Just gonna fold them up so you can slide them through like so. I'm gonna spray the first one or two. And again, going from the breech end, just gonna run it through. This will kind of really give you a good idea of how much fouling is still left in there. As you can see, the first patch that we just ran through, still pretty dark. So it tells me we're gonna go through, you know, at least a few of these patches. One of the other things I like to use is these Q-tips that are, again, specifically made for different calibers. These are the 9mm calibers. Again, I'm just gonna take one. So I've used, maybe off camera, just to save time, I used maybe 4 or 5 of the pads. So now we're just gonna take one of these. Again, spray the first one and just kind of work your way around in there, making sure you're getting all the sides of the barrel. And again, this will just kind of give you an idea of if there's anything left to get cleaned up. And as you can see, I'll show it to you here in a second, that came out still white. So now we know the inside of that barrel is nice and clean. So now we'll take a dry patch or a dry Q-tip and again, just kind of go in there, make sure the inside is now dry from the cleaner. Then we can take another one of these Q-tips or whatever you have, rag, you know, I highly recommend these. I'll link them below. They're awesome to get into little tiny spaces. But now I'm just gonna go around all of the other surfaces, you know, around the outside in these little crevices. The carbon will build up, that little crevice at the top, in between those two little pegs right in there in that area. Just gonna go ahead and take my Q-tips and just kind of run around all of those areas and make sure we can get off all that carbon. So once you're satisfied and you got in all those little crevices, just gonna wipe mine off one more time, set it over here with the recoil spring, and we'll move on to the slide. Now when it comes to my slide, I like to start with just with the microfiber. Again, just a couple sprays. And we're gonna use that to just kind of give it, it's the initial wipe down to get most of the bigger buildup. You'll see it'll come off pretty dirty. We put maybe, I don't even know, 200 or 300 rounds through the 9 today. I have the empty boxes in there because I do keep track. But again, we were shooting all three guns today, so I'll have to go back and count the empty boxes. But so we're just gonna take the microfiber and give it the initial wipe down just to get all that major fouling out of there before we go in with the Q-tips and the pads. So once we feel good and got the majority of that carbon buildup out of there, now we'll switch over to the pads. And I even like, so I showed you the Q-tips that are made for the barrel. I also have a bunch of these, and you can buy these things in like a pack of 500 or I think maybe even 1,000 I got. As I mentioned, everything will be linked, but these are awesome because they have a pointed tip for getting in like really tiny spots. They have a rounded tip on the other end. These are honestly, if I can recommend anything to you for a gun cleaning process, I absolutely love these. No matter whether it's my 9, my 45s, whatever I'm cleaning, I absolutely love these little I want, not a toothpick, but you know what I'm saying, a cotton tipped applicator, I guess. Again, I'll link them down below for you. Check these things out. They make your life a lot easier when you're cleaning in these little crevices. So what I like to do is I'll grab a handful, I don't know, 4 or 5, there's 5 there now, and I'm gonna go ahead and spray both ends. So that way we have 5 that are, again, not soaked, but they're wet with the gun cleaner. Now we're gonna go in with these that are moistened and just kind of get in the little grooves, paying special attention to the slide rails, okay? And I'll put a picture on the screen and show you exactly the area I'm talking about if you're not sure of what I'm talking about. But you want to make sure these slide, where the rails slide, you definitely want to make sure that's nice and clean. We're also going to lubricate that area well at the end of the video. But yeah, that's definitely an area you want to pay special attention to. But just kind of get in there. I don't like to spray the slide itself. I'd rather spray the applicators or the microfiber and then go in. There are spots like you wouldn't want, you know, if you sprayed this directly, you wouldn't want cleaner building up there back by the striker pin or anything. So again, I like to spray my applicators and clean this way. I don't think I would personally recommend spraying the slide itself. Now, outside the slide, especially towards the front, that's okay. But towards the back, especially by the striker pin, I wouldn't spray directly back there. So just moisten your applicators and then just kind of get in there and, you know, clean it up the best you can with the moistened cotton tip applicators. You want to make sure you're getting your breech face nice and clean there. One other thing I like to do for those slots where the slide slides on the frame is I like to take 1 or 2 of the pads, spray them with the cleaner, and then I'll lay them kind of over the indentations, and I'll take a pick. Highly recommend one of these as well for cleaning, comes in handy. And I'll actually take that pick and get down in those grooves really well. And after doing this step, you can see, even still after using those Q-tips, you can see how much carbon kind of builds up in them grooves. I gotta be honest, you can spend an hour trying to get these grooves like completely clean. Good luck. If you want to, go nuts. I literally basically just try to get the majority out of there, and I'll go until, you know, that carbon is close to gone. But honestly, I mean, you can spend an hour trying to clean this slide and get it to where your, you know, your cloths are white. It's very hard to get every little speck of carbon off of your firearm after shooting. You can do it. Just plan to spend a decent amount of time. I don't go crazy. Again, just kind of get in here and pay attention to the most important spots and get them as clean as you can before we dry it off and move on to the frame. So you can see, you know, there's barely any more carbon coming out of them grooves. So I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe 1 or 2 more patches, but I'm pretty satisfied once it gets to that point. Then we'll switch over to the dry patches. Do the same thing just to get off any like extra or excess moisture in there from the cleaner. Use a dry Q-tip or 2 just to get in there, again, just to make sure you got all the moisture, the excess moisture from the cleaner. We'll give the slide 1 more quick wipe down and we'll set this aside. Moving on to the frame. All right, slide is done. Now on to the last part, the frame, other than wiping down the mags, which magazines actually real quick, I'll just show you. This is all I do with my magazines, literally just wipe down the exterior. I very rarely, unless there's like an issue with the mags or something, I very rarely, you can take them apart and clean the internal spring and all that. I literally just wipe down the outside, wipe down the follower right there on the top, and I set them aside. I don't go crazy with the magazines. I've never had to. So again, I could probably count on one hand the amount of time I've ever taken my magazines apart and cleaned out the interior of the mags. All right, last piece, the frame, before we get it lubricated. So just gonna hit my microfiber with another couple sprays. And just like the slide, we're basically gonna use the microfiber just to get the majority of the carbon off there, and then we'll switch over, same thing, using the Q-tips, the pick with some pads to get down in there. You know, again, just like the slide, I don't like to spray the frame directly. I spray the towel, and I'll spray the applicators and wipe them off that way. I don't like to spray. Really, the only things that I spray directly are my barrel and the recoil spring, and that's it. I very rarely spray even like the front of the slide, like I mentioned. I mean, that's technically all right, I guess, but I very rarely do that. I like to spray the towel and the applicators and clean them that way. It's just safer. I'll even get up there in the mag well just to wipe that out from both ends. Then we'll switch over to our Q-tips. Doesn't matter either size. You can even use the barrel ones to get down in certain spots. The only thing, I'll put a picture on your screen, there is on the Canik MC9, there is a little spring. You may actually be able to even see it right in there. I'll put a picture on the screen. While you're cleaning, if that spring pops off the perch, don't panic. I actually knocked it off the first time I was cleaning the inside because I really like to get down in here and clean it really well. You can literally just take either a set of tweezers or even something like this and just get down there and put the spring back up on the perch. So the first picture I put on your screen, that's how it should look. I'll put a picture on the screen of how it's going to look if it pops off. Again, don't panic. Very easy to put that on there. So I'm not going to show this whole process on camera. We're literally just going to take our Q-tips, same process. I'm going to moisten a handful of them and just kind of get down in these grooves and everything. I don't spray, as I mentioned, and then we'll switch over to the dry patches and Q-tips, make sure everything is dried up, and then I'll show you how to lubricate it. You could actually even lift up these levers. You'll see, it's kind of hard for me to show you, but what that does is it's going to give you access to an area in here that's covered when they're sitting at rest. So you can pick up on these levers. Again, just gives you access to different spots that are covered. You could also pull the trigger back and you can see that sliding, which will give you access to right in here. That's typically covered by that metal piece there. Okay, so go ahead and just go to town. Get it nice and cleaned up and ready to rock. All right, so once you have it cleaned to your satisfaction and your little 2x2s and your Q-tips are coming up white and clean, you give it one final wipe down, and then we're on to lubrication and reassembly. Okay, lubrication is just as important, if not more importanter. Okay, lubrication is just as important, if not more important, than the actual cleaning process itself. Once you have it nice and clean and dry, lubrication is the key to getting your firearm to last a very long time. With the cleaning process, of course, but you definitely want to make sure it's lubricated to keep this thing operating in tip-top shape. So let me show you where you want to oil and where I oil and lubricate the firearm before we put it back together. So what I do, the oil that I'm using is also the M Pro. I don't have the bigger bottle. I put it in this smaller little bottle because it has a nice fine tip on it. This comes in that kit that I mentioned with the brushes and all that stuff. So what I do is I'll take a 2x2 or one of the cleaning pads and shake up the oil a little bit, and I'll put maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 drops going across the pad like that. I'll take the barrel and just put a nice even light coat on the barrel itself. I don't put it back by the feed ramp. So up here, just at the front of the barrel, like so. And the reason I like using a pad like this, it just kind of evens it out, gives it a nice even coat. You can put a drop or two directly on there, rub it around with your finger if you want. I just found over my years of shooting, using a pad like this, using the oil on the pad versus just dropping it directly on the piece. I don't know, to me it just gives it a nice, even, perfect coat of oil versus, because you don't want to go too heavy with your lubricant. If you do, you're asking for trouble. It's going to gum up, dirt and stuff is just going to stick to it like crazy. You just want a very fine, even coat of gun oil on the locations that I'm going to show you. You don't want to go overboard. So just using a pad for me, do whatever works for you. But again, you just want a nice even coat of oil on the barrel there, because if you think about it, when you took it apart, if you think about it, this, when you're shooting, is going to rub up inside the slide there. And speaking of that location, that's the next spot we're going to do. So again, I'm going to take the same pad. It's just got a very, very light coating of oil on it, and we're going to go ahead and do this whole area right there in the slide, because that's where the barrel is going to be. So we'll just put a nice light coat in there. You never want metal scraping against metal. That's not good in no matter what you're talking about. So the other spot that I do put a little very light coat is the rail right here in the center. Now, some people will do that, some people don't. I personally do, always have. Never had any issues. So using the same one, again, it's not heavily coated, just a nice light coating on that rail right there in the middle. And you should see, like when you're doing this, you should be able to tell if you have oil like running or dripping. That is way too much. You should be able to look at it and see that it's nice and shiny, that the oil's there, but again, it's just a nice fine light coat of evenly spread oil in these given locations. Now next we're going to take, and I'm going to put another drop or two, same pad, just another drop or two, and I'm going to fold it over so it looks like that. Okay, you can see the couple drops of oil on it. We're going to go back to using our pick, and now we're going to go inside those rails that I showed you earlier when we were cleaning. Let's set the frame aside for a second. So I'm going to take the location on the pad that has the 2 drops of oil. I'm going to take it and put it face down in those little, or in the rails there. And I'm just going to take my pick, and again, this is just going to give it a nice even coat, nice light coat in those rails where the slide slides along the frame. Do that on both sides. Okay. We're going to set the slide apart, or aside. That's the only locations that I put oil on the slide, so we'll set that over here. And now, before we put it all back together, you want to take your frame, and again, I'm going to use the same pad. It shouldn't be dirty at this point because we just kind of thoroughly cleaned the weapon. So I'm going to take it, maybe put another drop or two, you know, just kind of look at your pad. If it looks like it's not, you know, if it's all dried up and doesn't have anything on it, take your dropper and put another drop or two on there. And now we're going to go on the rails of the frame. So right here, the locations that, again, the slide is going to go back and forth on as you're shooting. So we'll just take it and just lightly lubricate those areas there. And again, I've seen people just take your dropper and put a drop there and spread it around. I personally like using the pads. Again, it just kind of, I don't want to say guarantees, but if you just take your dropper and put a little drop there, it may run down in a spot you don't want it or whatever. This kind of ensures that you don't have that problem and you get the oil exactly where you want it. Okay, and that's it. So now we're ready to get it back together. We're just going to go ahead and reverse our steps. We're going to take our barrel, put it into the slide like so, kind of drop it down in there like that. Take your recoil spring and set it back down in there. When you're taking this apart, just kind of take note of how it's sitting in there. You really can't mess it up. It's just gonna, the face of it is going to go in the bottom hole there, and then you're just going to push it forward to get it to sit down on the barrel where it was when you took it off. When you're looking at it, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's kind of hard to show on video as I'm doing it, but again, maybe I'll take a picture and put it on the screen there or something for you. Once you're doing it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You really can't mess it up, I want to say. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, but pretty self-explanatory. One thing I will say is you want to make sure that your recoil spring is centered on your barrel, okay? So once you get it sitting down there in there like it should be centered, but just, you know, eyeball it, make sure it looks good, and we're ready to move on. And we'll take our slide assembly, and you're going to put the rear of the slide right in front of the back silver pieces of the frame, like so. It's gonna just kind of find the sweet spot. It should just kind of like pop right down on there. Slide it back, and you're ready to go. Now, one thing I like to do once I get to this point, obviously it's empty, not loaded, just kind of slide it back and forth a time or two, get that oil. Again, it's a light coat, but just get that oil working in there, evenly distributed on those rails especially. And now at this point, what I like to do is take that rag that has that very light coat of oil, and I just kind of coat the outside. And then I take a clean microfiber, not one that we used throughout the process, but a clean one, and then just lightly wipe off the exterior. Last thing I like to do is just make sure everything is functional. So pull back, slide's going nice and easy. If we push back, our slide stop is working as it should. Goes forward, safe, pointed in a safe direction, even though we know it's empty. Trigger's working well, so now we know it's put back together, it's lubricated, and it is ready to rock for the next trip to the range. There it is, guys. That's how you properly clean and lubricate the Canik Mete MC9 to get it almost as clean as it was when it came from the factory, or darn close. If you have any issues with your MC9, go back and check out, I want to say it was 2 or 3 videos ago that I posted on the channel. I'll link it down below for you. This thing is shooting like a dream. I was having issues in the very beginning with this thing. There's 6 tips that I show in that video that will get this Canik Mete MC9 shooting flawlessly. I have put hundreds of rounds through this thing since I did that video and made those 6, I guess, modifications, for lack of better words. And this thing is eating anything and everything I put through it. Not a single hang up. It is literally just, it is a dream to shoot at this point. Go back and check out that video if you want, see what I had to do to this thing to get it to that point. And if I can help you out, let me know. If you have any questions on the cleaning and lubrication process from this video, put them down below and we'll get them addressed for you. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.